Welcome to Razzball Radio Fantasy Sports Network. I'm your host, Nick Capozzi, and it's Friday, so you know we got Sky Day, Friday. It's the best day of the week. How you doing, Sky?
Oh, not too bad. It's Friday morning. The weekend's right around the corner, so hard to complain.
Yes, but somehow you will find a way.
I will. I'm from the Pacific Northwest. It rains all the time
You're a
up
bit
here.
whiny. I
Yeah,
meant the region.
just a scotch.
Just a scotch. The Pacific Northwest words, lingo that I learned hanging out with you was unbelievable. All right, dude,
Like,
even though it is bye-week blues, because like all the best teams, this is going to be the crappiest week of football.
yeah.
But we still got a lot to get to, man, because Friday's a jam-packed show. We're going to tell you what we're going to be observing this weekend and also some start-sits. So let's get to a rapid fire. New England versus Kansas City. What you watching in that game, Sky?
Yeah. Will the Pats ever become a strong fantasy team for passing purposes again?
No.
Yeah, I question it. I question it deeply. Other than Edelman, pretty much anyone who owns part of the passing attack for the Pats the last 2 weeks, it's just been, a dead zone. Where Gronkowski owners have been lucky to get a touchdown.
Yeah, the problem is they have no wide receivers there. Edelman's not even a real wide receiver. On a good passing attack, he'd be, a slot receiver. Wes Welker in his prime, he is not.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. And obviously Tom trusts him. That's the main reason. But they haven't even been getting Vereen involved, and that's because they've just been relying heavily on their defense and rushing the ball with Ridley. So,
What
yeah,
team currently leads the NFL in lowest yards per offensive attempt?
well, for pass attempts, or are you asking me this?
Period.
Period. I would have to assume it would be the Pats, actually.
Well, now, yes, because I kind of set you up on that one.
Yeah. Well,
But that's the problem. They need to know. Randy Johnson, circa 2008. Where are you? Where are you? All right. In that game, I'm going to be watching if Charles is healthy and is playing. How much does Niall Davis get involved? Where did you go, Sky? Hold on. Sky disappeared. Oh, man. He's so handsome. There you go. Welcome back. All right. Good luck. Okay. Jacksonville versus the San Diego Superchargers. What are you watching that game?
Yeah, well, Bortles have a pocket to pass from. Penny led the league with 16 sacks before being demoted for Blake last week.
Big part of the problem, though, was Henny held on to the ball too long.
Oh yeah, no, like they always say, especially when the sacks pile up that high, part of it is the quarterback and the other part of it is the offensive line. So, but I do want to see what they're able to do, since San Diego is usually able to get a decent amount of push on the offensive line.
All right, I want to see who emerges in this game now that Bortles is in there as his primary pass catcher, because there's so many young wide receivers here on this offense. Who's going to be his go-to guy? I actually don't think it's going to be Cecil Shorts, so it'll be interesting to see what happens there. I will be watching that closely. The Carolina Super Panthers, it doesn't have the same effect as Superchargers. Panthers taking on Baltimore. What are you watching in that game?
Yeah, I'm looking directly at they've lost Pitta. Who's going to get those targets? Is Owen Daniels just going to step in to that role and get a majority of the targets? It's questionable. He's a little bit older. He's not quite the same athlete that Dennis Pitta is. And last week we saw the fullback Kyle Juszczyk. I'm assuming that's how you Juszczyk.
Yes. I busted out my Polish this week.
Nice, Juszczyk. I love that. That's a nickname.
Juszczyk.
Oh, Juszczyk. Okay.
Use.
Good Lord. Okay, use. In any case, yeah, he put up the numbers last week with 3 catches for 54 yards and a touchdown when Dennis went down. So it'll be interesting to see which of those two ends up getting a lot of those targets.
All right, I know you like interesting beers. So
Yeah.
on that I'm not even Polish, by the way, but just on that Polish kick, talking about Juszczyk.
Yeah.
If you ever get a chance, Żywiec. The best best Polish beer out there. There you go. Ring it up. All right. I will be watching which Carolina team shows up. The team that started 2-0 or the team that looked awful against Pittsburgh last week. Where's the running game? Who's going to run the ball, if at all? Wouldn't it be crazy if someone runs away, like a Fozzie Whitaker runs away and becomes like a 1,200-yard rushing back for this team? I could see something crazy like that happen.
I could too, actually.
Speaking of crazy, I am crazy excited to watch New Orleans versus Dallas because, well, I'll tell you what. You start with what you're looking at.
Yeah, well, I mean, everyone's expecting fantasy fireworks for this game. It's supposed to be, the game is supposed to be, I want to say 53.5 is the spread. I could be wrong on that.
Over
So,
under.
yeah, over
I
under.
got to teach you how to gamble.
Yeah, I know. I'll work on it, Nick. You work on me off screen. So, but Tony Romo, can he finally have a good fantasy passing game for his owners? So far, it's been the DeMarco Murray show in Dallas, and not much else. So this is definitely the week where Tony Romo should be passing for 300 and throwing 3 or 4 touchdowns.
Guess what? I'll be watching for the same thing. Terrence
Yeah,
Williams killing me. Yeah,
yeah,
killing me.
yeah.
The Philadelphia Alphas Eagles versus the San Franciscan Treats. What are you
Yeah.
watching?
Yeah, how is Foles going to respond to a quote unquote real defense? So far, he's been able to go against Jacksonville, who has a good front, but outside of that, they've easily torched in the secondary, and then the Indianapolis Colts and Washington. So nothing really daunting there in terms of secondaries so far. So San Francisco, even though they're a little banged up, it's still a well-coached unit. I'm going to be very interested to see
I'm
how
going
he
to disagree
responds.
with you. I'm not saying well coached. I'm not buying that because I think Harbaugh is already halfway to Michigan coaching the Wolverines next year. He is
Oh,
so checked. Man, if there's ever been a coach that is checked out, it's
yeah.
this guy. I don't think
Yeah.
he's there this year. That's my issue.
Well, we'll see how many wines he has on the sideline. I count his
Oh,
emotion.
hissy fits. They're not whines, they're hissy fits. I'll be
There we go.
watching to see can Colin Kaepernick kind of emerge as this quarterback that, myself and others thought he could potentially be. Real
Hmm.
quick, before the break, Detroit at New York Jets. You got one sentence. Tell me what you're watching.
I'm watching Chris Ivory against that front. I think
Yeah,
he's
you did your sentence. You did your sentence. I'm watching
uh,
to see who the second pass catcher in that offense is. Is it going to be Curley? Is it going to be Amaro? That's what I want to see. I don't want to see the Jets play. They make me. I get frustrated when I watch the Jets. Sorry, New York. I'm not anti-Jet. It's just frustrating. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is Razzball Radio. This is the Fantasy Sports Network. I am Nick Capozzi. He is Sky without a last name. We'll be back right after this. We got more observations. Welcome back, Razzball Radio, Fantasy Sports Network. Nick and Sky talking things that we'll be watching this week as well. We're going to get to some surprising start sits. I don't think we try and shock and awe people, but if we're actually rolling the dice, what are we actually thinking? But first, let's talk about the Green Bay Packers heading to Chi-Town. It's in Chicago, the game, I think, right?
yes, it
Okay.
should be.
What will you be watching in that game?
Yeah, I'm going to be watching Eddie Lacy. Is he this year's CJ Spiller? The fantasy owners have been frustrated beyond all belief. Even when he's been healthy, he hasn't really done much when he's been on the field. But he's also had some very tough matchups. So he's either proving that he can't handle tough matchups, or with this week, or he's just literally a goner and a wasted pick.
I don't know that I can say wasted pick, but I was going to say I'm concerned, which I am. I was going to say I'm confused, which I am. That tends to happen on a regular basis, but nonetheless, when talking about Eddie Lacy, I have no shares in him this year. I think I have him in one of like the 487,000 leagues I'm in this year.
Yeah.
So, but man, I would be close to jumping off a bridge, and I don't even want to call him a buy low. I don't know how to assess that right now. I'm confused. I think the offense is out of sync, but until
Yeah.
I see something, that's too scary for me. I'm going
Yeah.
to be watching because Brandon Marshall is such a gladiator slash competitor slash tough son of a gun. Does he look healthy? Because he's a guy who can play through an injury, but if he's going to be hobbled by that ankle and it becomes an ongoing thing just because he's tough enough to play, that devalues him big time. So how does he look? Miami versus the Raiders. What will you be keying on in this game?
Well, I'm wondering if we see Matt Moore this week with all the bad talk and press that Tannehill's been getting, and the coaching staff
Bad
even.
talk, yeah. You got bad talk, Tannehill. Bad talk. Bad talk.
But yeah, I think it's also a question of which direction is Miami going if they do decide to go to Matt Moore, because Matt Moore has zero upside for them. Tannehill still has it. They just haven't broken that potential out. So what kind of team are they if they go to Matt Moore?
Listen, they don't have offensive playmakers. Mike Wallace is completely overrated. What
Yep.
I'll be watching, just to tie it in, is Lamar Miller against the second worst rush defense in the NFL. He
Yeah.
had a great week last week. Is he actually emerging now? So is this his time? But other than whoever is rushing the ball for them, they got Mike Wallace, and that's it. So you can put so much on Tannehill, but until you get him weapons, I mean, Kirk Cousins, I don't want to talk about the Thursday night game because I had to start Cousins in a very important league, and I'm very upset. But Cousins has options. He's got Garcon. He's got Djax. He's got whoever the tight end is. He's got Halou even, out of the backfield, who had a bunch of catches at the end of the game. It was in garbage time, but nonetheless, there's no weapons there in Miami. So until you can't fully assess Ryan Tannehill, because he's kind of interesting, but until there's more weapons there, you're off the list.
Yeah.
The Tennessee Titans head to Indianapolis. The most boring drive in the world is driving into or out of Indianapolis. You can say that from experience. What are you watching in that game?
Clearly, you've never driven to Washington State University. That's probably along the similar vein. But in any case, I'm going to be watching for Bishop Sankey. Does he finally get an extended look this week? Last week, he finally got more involved. He had 11 touches and ended up turning it into 70 yards. And that, like I said, that was the most time he's received all year. And given how poorly the team is playing, I do think they need a shakeup, and I would like to think that Bishop Sankey is going to be a part of that.
I think it's less about the running game there. Does Locker grow? If not, is it Whitehurst or Mettenberger? That's like the fourth time I've mentioned his name this week, only because he's got a cannon of an arm. Do you watch the show Survivor?
No, I do not.
Still do. I know it's bad. I apologize, but I still watch Survivor. I still get into it, and I feel like Justin Hunter and Kendall Wright are on Exile Island. So what I want to see, if Locker doesn't go, which may be by injury again, who would be the safety net? Who would either Whitehurst or Mettenberg go to in that situation? Last game, Texas versus Buffalo. What are you watching?
Yeah. So if Arian Foster plays, how much of a reduced workload does he see this week? The Texans had already committed to reducing Arian's workload heading into week 3 before he even got injured. Just given the pace that he was on, they knew they needed to keep him healthy. So I'm going to be intrigued to see how much of a timeshare it is, if it's a timeshare at all, if and when he's back on the field this weekend.
All right. I will be watching how long it takes. Let me set my watch till we see Orton. Because that offense has skilled position players. Manuel's not doing it. Give me some Orton. If I'm a Buffalo fan right now, I'm saying give me Orton because Manuel, I am officially, I've pushed him over the cliff myself. I'm done with him. Done.
I've actually picked up Orton in a couple of deeper leagues with this thought in mind. So it's definitely a thought out there.
There is skill there. There is skill. All right, listen, before we get to the start sits, I just want to tell you about our sports bar of the day, The Post in St. Louis. You and I hung out there. If you are watching football in St. Louis this week and you're not doing it at The Post, by the way, the winners, 2014 Razzball Radio, 32 and 32 and 32 Fantasy Sports Bar of the Year, The Post in St. Louis. All right, let's get to some start sits. We'll bang out a couple before we go to break here. Let us talk starts. You were starting Mike Evans. What's up with that?
Yeah, the giraffe is back under center. Gotta love Mike Glennon. Now that he's there, he was able to utilize Djax last year pretty well. And in terms of size, I mean, clearly, when you're that high up, you can see the field really well. So he's going to be able to throw it into those tall trees of Evans and Djax. So I think Mike Evans is definitely going to outplay his wide receiver 40 slot there in his rankings.
All right, I'm starting Alfred Blue versus Buffalo. Sounds a little crazy, but remember, this is bye-week disaster week. I mean, this is like construction road signs are on the road. That's how much damage there is due to bye weeks this week. Slow down, by the way. Slow down for those guys. They're working hard for you. Alfred Blue versus Buffalo doesn't seem like a matchup that you'd kind of want to jump at against that defense. But two things. Arian Foster, hamstring, 2 months. Yeah, come on.
Yeah.
So I actually like the idea of Alfred Blue getting touches there, whether it becomes a timeshare or if Foster's just out again. And I think that's going to be a ground and pound game for Houston if they're going to have an opportunity. So I like Alfred Blue there. We will get to more start and sits. I'm Nick Capozzi at NICKCAPOZZ on Twitter. He is at Sky_Razzball. We'll be back. Razzball Radio, Fantasy Sports Network, right after this. Welcome back. Razzball Radio, Fantasy Sports Network, Nick and Sky going over some start sits that might shock and awe you. All right, maybe not, but stuff that we're going a little bit deeper here. We're trying to help you win games. You've got Allen Robinson, the 42nd wide receiver off the board for Jacksonville. Why?
Yeah, maybe people don't understand the Jags will be forced to pass this week. Maybe they also don't understand that he played 72% of the snaps last week, up from 62% the week prior, and that he connected with Bortles quite well once Bortles came in. I think at worst he's going to be a wide receiver 2 this week just based on volume alone.
I need to see why. I need a game or two to see who Bortles is going to throw to before I start any of those Jags wide receivers. But I tell you what, I will start Jeremy Curley of the Jets versus Chicago because, again, same thing. I don't like hamstring injuries. They make me angry. And, of course, Decker is out with that. And they're going to have to throw against Chicago. They're going to have to. So I think Curley's going to be the guy there. You're starting Ladarius Green, the number 19 tight end.
Yeah.
I'm in my mind, I can kind of see where you're going with that, but it's because I know you so well. Explain to the viewer why you're starting LG.
Well, you just know I'm crazy. That's what you were going to throw out there.
Crazy, man. You are safe. You're safe like a Brinks truck.
Last week, Ladarius Green, the snap count stayed the same as it had been pretty much all season. He's not playing every down. I think he was in for about a third of the plays. But the big thing is it's not about numbers sometimes. It's about where you're getting those snaps. And a majority of them were down in the red zone. I think he had 3 or 4 red zone targets last week, which, given the team that he's facing, I do think this is going to be a ground and pound week like it was last week for them. I see Donald Brown getting tons of carries and touches. But, if they get down inside the 10-yard line, yes, it could be Gates, but I think it could also be Green. And given the week that we have, given it's bye week, I think he's definitely a great flyer for a touchdown and maybe 40 yards.
All right. Well, I like actually Eddie Royal in that same game. 2 touchdowns last week. I think he's kind of taken over that Danny Woodhead type role in that offense. The guy keeps putting up touchdowns, so I'll happily start Eddie Royal versus the Jags. You're starting Blake Bortles, though, against San Diego's defense, man. That's kind of ballsy. I'm not going to lie.
Well, I think the big thing is it's a volume play. He's going to be playing from behind. San Diego, their MO so far this year has been own the clock, and so they're going to try to grind it down as much as possible when they have the ball. And I see them being down by 2 touchdowns early, and Blake's just going to have to be throwing the ball, which is going to lead to the opportunity for a 300-yard week, which I think is going to vault him into the top 10 for the week.
Yeah, I don't think so. I'm not seeing that. But what I am seeing is Sean Green versus Indianapolis. They're going to have to rely on the rushing attack to stay in that game. He's averaging 4.8 yards per carry. So I will start Sean Green, even though every fiber of my being tells me not to. I'll start him this week if I have to. This is a real deep one here. You're starting DeAnthony Thomas, the 67th running back for Kansas City. Mark Collins, 2-time Super Bowl champion. He messed with your head in Kansas City.
He totally did. This one's for you, Mark. The big thing is last week we got to see Joe McKnight, and everyone's going to say, who? I don't think he had played since 2012, and all of a sudden he comes in, gets 6 catches for 64 yards and 2 touchdowns. DeAnthony Thomas is going to be filling a similar role of what Joe McKnight had once he's on the field. And even if Charles is healthy, they're going to need to find ways to not grind him into the ground like they did last year. And DeAnthony Thomas, a.k.a. Dat, is going to be able to do that for him.
All right. I think that Greg Jennings is startable versus the Falcons this week. And the reason why is the Falcons are terrible on the road. So either they're going to come out and look terrible, which I don't think they will in Minneapolis, or it'll be close. So either way, I think Jennings is going to be the guy who's going to catch the ball for the Minnesota Vikings. All right, we're going to go through our sits, but we only got about 3 minutes. So we got to go rapid fire here, okay, buddy? You get one line. Why are you sitting Kerry Robinson?
It's going to be a passing game, man.
Yeah, but I can see him punching in 1 or 2. I'd be okay starting Kerry Robinson, but I tell you what, I'm not starting Jordan Matthews this week. Everyone's a bit too excited about his 2 touchdowns versus Washington. He's a rookie. That's not going to happen every week. Watch him go, 3 for 27 this week. You are sitting Mike Wallace. We talked about how much I dislike the Finns playmakers.
Yeah. Thanks, Joe Philbin. You've ruined us all.
All right. I am sitting Cecil Shorts versus the San Diego Superchargers. I need to see again who's going to emerge as the pass catcher for Blake Bortles. You're sitting Marcus Wheaton. I like me some Wheaton.
I do too, Cream of Wheaton. I love that guy. But in the end, he's a fringe wide receiver 3 this week as it is, and they ain't going to be passing the ball much, so no reason to start him.
I am sitting Keenan Allen versus the Jaguars of Jacksonville because you know what? He's been terrible this year. And this is one thing I talked about all preseason. I wasn't touching Keenan Allen. Third round? Come on. Third round?
Agree. I was off him all preseason as well.
You know what? Show me, 9 for 123 and 2 touchdowns versus Jacksonville, and we'll talk. But right now, you were on the fringe, my friend.
Yeah.
You were sitting Jason Witten. You said it was going to be a passing game. What's up?
Well, even in games that it has been passing, he's averaging 3 catches and 32 yards a game. So it hasn't been his passing game. I'll just put it that way.
Okay, fair. I am sitting Donald Brown versus Jacksonville. I'll tell you why. The Jags have the worst rushing defense in the NFL as we discuss this in this very moment. But I'll tell you this. It's because they've been playing catch-up, and teams have just been grinding. That front seven's actually not too bad. Secondary's still flawed, and I was stumping the Jags as a sleeper defense. I think it might be a situation where they start, 1-5, but then claw back and win, 6 games in the second half, and because they're close. I think they're closer than the Rams are, talent-wise.
Yeah.
So to being a contender. So, and I do like the Rams. So I think that Donald Brown is not a good start versus Jacksonville because that's a little bit of a misleading number, the rushing defense. All right, your last sit of the week, and it pains me, man, but I'm with you on this. Cam Newton.
Yeah. He's only played two of the 3 weeks, and he's already tied for 6th in the NFL with 7 sacks. These numbers aren't good for a guy that's already hobbled. I'm very worried about his health the rest of season. And he's also playing away, and this is going to be the Steve Smith revenge game. So I just do not see things going well for Cam.
Okay, I'm going to say this real quick. I'm not saying I would do it, but I would contemplate sitting McCoy this week. Don't let guys come back from a concussion. Hasn't looked good. Up against that defense, I need to see. Sky, I wish I had more time for you. I don't, brother. I will be thinking of you all weekend. Hope this was helpful for you. Well, hey, it was helpful to some degree. You need to decide to what degree. Nick Capozzi, Sky Seymour, thanks for joining us. Razzball Radio Fantasy Sports Network. See you Monday.